SFCC-CEA Lunchbox Series. Today we have a great speaker, our sixth speaker of the semester. And let me go ahead and share my screen. There we go. So again, the SFCC-CEA Lunchbox Speaker Series. This is an attempt to connect our students more with academia professionals, industry professionals, and have some one-on-one dialogue after we give a presentation. So the format is typically, I'm going to give some announcements here, and then we'll have a presentation from our speaker, and then we'll stop recording. And at that point, my students get some one-on-one time with that industry or academia expert. In these times of online teaching, we don't have a lot of direct connection in the classroom. We don't have opportunities to bring in guest speakers. But as a result of COVID years, we've all transitioned really well to online. So I can bring in a speaker like my friend today from Canada. So some of our upcoming talks, let's see. I need to make sure that you're seeing this. Chris, can you speak up? Are you seeing my presentation?
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, so some of our upcoming speakers, again, this is our last speaker for the semester, and I'll be releasing a new schedule in the fall. We'll take off the summer. We don't have a lot of class activity, and so there's not a lot of students around, so we'll pick up in the fall when we get a whole new cohort of students. We hope to get another 20 or 30 new students on top of the 20 or 30 that we're carrying into the fall. So again, reminder who we've seen this semester, Joe Pate, thank you again for kicking off this series. And Pedro, thank you for telling us about aquaponics down in Puerto Rico. Damon Seawright is our guru of tilapia, fortunately located right here in New Mexico at Americulture is his business. Dr. Jim Tidwell, thank you again for inspiring our students to get involved in higher education after they leave Santa Fe Community College. And 2 weeks ago, we heard from Rosanna Salanave. Dr. Salanave is an extension aquatic ecology specialist, and she talked to us all about extension careers and how she sees that as a really good venue for a lot of my students who are trained in the advanced aquaculture and aquaponic, hydroponic area, because we need to look at some advanced technologies when it comes to water conservation for food or medicine production. And today, Justin Henry is with us from UBC, is one of his locations now. He's had a few businesses throughout Canada. He's been a pioneer of organic standards as well. He's involved in aquaponics, but primarily he's been doing aquaculture and really leading that industry across Canada. Some of the upcoming events, I left a couple of these to remind you that they've been held in the past. And the U of A, University of Arizona short course on greenhouse engineering that was held last month. And I have access to some of the videos if you'd like to get access to those. This Monday coming up, so I've changed the date. I'll go ahead and put that new date here. April 28th is Monday. We're going to do that library cleanup. So we're adopting a library over by the high school to help them out and to open that space up to children's agriculture options. This Saturday is our trip to Earthship. If you are a student, make sure that you are RSVPing, or if you're a community member as well and you'd like to join us, I need to know, I need to get a head count. So we're going up all day on Saturday. The Animas and San Juan Watersheds Conference, I'm not going to be involved in that because I'll be traveling in the Caribbean. But if any student wants to be involved, it's a virtual as well as an in-person conference, so you can easily attend and start networking. And then some of these other conferences we've mentioned before. Cultivate is the largest indoor grow conference in the US. It's not so much a conference, more of a trade show. So the benefit of going there is that trade show floor is probably 5 acres, and it's all the vendors for indoor agriculture that we would be using. NCERO 101 is that committee by USDA. It's comprised mainly of ARS leads, talking about technology within the indoor vertical farm space. So a lot of that technology obviously is lighting, so that's a lot of their work. But this is another great place to network within the CEA community. Most of you are very interested in aquaponics, not just the hydroponics or the CEA field, but specifically on the symbiotic closed loop systems of aquaponics. So remember, the big industry association conference is the end of September. I do anticipate students being involved, students giving projects on their independent research, some industry that we've created here, Andrew's Farm, Desert Verde, Nate Downey's farm. He's working with Joe Pate on lettuce, etc. They'll probably be doing presentations there. We will also have a booth there for SFCC-CEA. So if students want to attend this in person, there's some good opportunity that I can get you scholarships if you want to get there. And all you need to do is help man that booth and talk the talk. Okay, and then the big industry where I run into Justin and some of my Canadian friends is Aquaculture America, part of World Aquaculture Society. This is the meeting. I was in San Diego recently, and the upcoming meeting will be in the middle of February. Great time for some Mardi Gras activities in New Orleans. So hopefully you will be around in the spring with me here at SFCC. You're not leaving too quick. If you are, let's try to get some scholarships and get that club active again so we can make a trip out to New Orleans. All right, so what I'm doing again today, we're opening up the Lunchbox. We picked this time because a lot of our students have this available. We're not currently teaching any CEA classes right now. A lot of my students work though, and they have families and they're not able to be here. So that's why I am recording these sessions. And also I'm trying to transcribe these. So once these do end up on YouTube, we should be able to offer this as a closed caption and transcribed. So look for that if you're on YouTube trying to figure out what's going on. All right, so now I'm going to introduce Justin Henry again. I'm going to let him give his bio. And Justin, you can share your screen whenever you're ready, and I'll let you take it away and inspire these students. These students are all ages, Justin, with huge amounts of experience. Some of them have been commercial industry, and some of them are high school students, just never planted a seed before, so they're just getting into it. They all seem to have a passion for aquaculture. Mainly through me introducing the need for aquaculture. So they do understand why we do what we do, but I'm looking forward to a story from you. Thanks for joining us, Justin. Looks good.
Hey, thanks a lot for that, Charlie, and good morning to all of you aquaponics enthusiasts. Thanks for inviting me into your class, and I know that you're entering a very exciting and growing sector here. You're all very fortunate to have Charlie as your instructor, who you're probably aware, but really North America's preeminent aquaponics expert. Yes, you're in really good hands there.
Thanks, Justin. I'm going to drop off. I'm going to give you the floor. I'm right here if you need me. Okay.
Very good. Thanks for that. The following, I'm going to start off with a modified presentation that I gave at the RasTech conference last month in South Carolina. It's about the fish side of aquaponics and what it takes to build a recirculating aquaculture system. In this case, mostly we'll be focused on a large-scale system. After that, we can discuss some of my aquaponics projects, where those are, and the Canadian Organic Aquaculture Standard, if there's interest in that. And I'm sorry that the US doesn't have an organic standard for aquaculture yet, but perhaps one day that will happen. So 20 years ago,
something happened on the screen, Justin. Can't it like minimized all the font type, and now I just see a white screen. There you go. There it's gonna be. There. Okay.
Very good. So 20 years ago, when my wife was pregnant, we didn't have a clue about what was required when having a baby or raising a child. We didn't know what to expect, and therefore we sought guidance from many people and books, including this one: what to expect when you're expecting. Has anyone here read this book or heard of this?
Yeah, that was my Bible for a while. Anybody else?
Or are you just wondering what this has to do with RAS?
Yeah, and you all use chat today. If you get asked questions, just prompt in your chat. Okay, great.
Yeah. Feel free to pop those in there. or if you have questions. So many years before my child was born, in 1990, I entered the aquaculture sphere. I eventually studied recirculating aquaculture systems in 1995 and began farming in RAS in 1998. So it was about 24 years ago that I built my first RAS for Atlantic salmon smolt production, and built the second one for sturgeon production 2 years later. There was quite a long and steep learning curve, many challenges along the way, but eventually the production results in these systems became consistently impressive. I've been involved with the design and operation of several RAS facilities since then, adding aquaponics in 2010. And the most recently completed project that I've worked on is a very small pilot scale coho, salmon, and cannabis aquaponics facility, which we built in 2018. And it has fortunately performed very well from day one. So like many of you, I have unfortunately watched many grow out RAS facilities for a variety of reasons fail to get off the ground, have significant startup challenges, or just flounder over the past several years. Problems have been with finance, with regulation, design, construction, or operation of the facility. And it became clear that many groups developing both small and large scale RAS didn't know what to expect, like many soon-to-be parents. And wouldn't it be nice if there was such a book for soon-to-be parents of a new RAS? Like what to expect when you're expecting to build a RAS. Well, if I wrote a book, it would have included the following 7 chapters. Now note that you would not have to read these in order, and you may not be able to, and there are probably lots of other chapters, and people smarter than I am will write those, but each of the chapters is about reducing risk. So we will start with a team of experts, look at financing, although financing has several sections. We'll look at the location. We'll look at the design of the facility, strategy for staffing. Hold on. Financing again, because it carries on, and then finally come to construction of the facility. So let's jump into first things first. You'll need a team of experts, the size of which will depend on the grandeur of your dream. This chapter you should read first. And here we just have a team that I'm working with on a very large scale RAS that we're designing for a farm in Nevada. So you need a finance expert, especially on large projects. But if you start only with this, history has shown that you can run into a multitude of problems. You need a regulation expert so that you know what the rules are and what the timelines are in your proposed location, which is yet to be chosen. There will likely be convoluted regulations, the likes of which you have never dreamed. You need a design expert, especially for large systems. For small systems, you may be able to just rely on your yet to be chosen RAS technology provider, but I don't suggest that, especially for big ones. Construction expert, because most civil contractors don't have any experience building RAS, and the majority of your Capex will be in civil costs. Do not leave it to your RAS technology provider to determine your civil Capex. And then you need some operation expert right from the beginning so that your operational considerations are implemented into the design of your system. Again, don't just leave this to your RAS technology provider. And no offense to the RAS technology providers at all, especially the ones who are going to read my book, but for the most part, they're not farmers. Then we get into financing, would be chapter 2. So the people at Atlantic Sapphire, perhaps you've heard of them. They were very good on the financing end, and as per the title in this news clipping here, with all of the marketing that they did, all eyes were on Atlantic Sapphire as they were able to raise a significant amount of capital. But with a couple of hiccups that they've had, that's also made raising capital a little more difficult for the entire sector in the short term. So you may need financing to carry out design work, or more likely if you're a new company, some companies will already have financing in place. Next, we would look at location. There are many considerations when selecting a general and a specific location for a RAS farm. Here are a few of them. So what is the support that you have from all levels of government for permitting, for regulatory certainty? Are there any government incentives? Do you have community support, or at least no opposition, or at least know the opposition? Here we are with the mayor of Winnemucca, where the community, the county, and the state have welcomed this project, West Coast Salmon it's called. They've welcomed it with open arms. In addition to the regulatory climate, how's the weather? Here's just an image from where the RASTEC conference was on Hilton Head Island. And you have to consider, how does the climate impact the cost of your facility, the cost of chilling the water if you're growing a cold water species, for example? What's your proximity to markets? So this proximity should be measured in hours to market, not days to market. And that's a big advantage of growing fish in a RAS over conventional net pen production. But it's only an advantage if you're well located. Now, when selecting a site-specific location, water should be at the top of your list. What's the water quality at your stable pumping rate, which will be different than when you just test the well right off the bat. You have to be pumping it to know the water quality. What's the water quantity? Even though pre-design, you might not know exactly what your demand is, you need to have a good idea of what's available. Are you allowed to use the water for its intended use? Can you use it for both production and for fish processing if you're going to do that? At West Coast Salmon, the water rights came with the land, and these rights were for agriculture, but specifically for irrigation. So we had to change the allowable use of those water rights. How do you get rid of the water that you don't want to use anymore? All right, just going to catch up here. Power. Is the power available to meet your requirements? Which at this point you can get a good estimate, but until you've done the design of your facility, you don't know your power requirement. If not, you will need to find out both the cost and the time to get that power to your site. Soil properties and topography. There are some questions to ask and to answer here. You'll need on a large system, you'll need a geotechnical engineer involved early. You have to find out what your costs of excavation are. How deep is the water table at your facility? Which is rather important, and some large farms have run into problems with this. What's the ability to recharge the water back into the aquifer if that's what you plan to do with it? This is a test RIB, or rapid infiltration basin, at the site in Nevada. And we're just using it here to measure the percolation rate of water. This is what it looked like after trying to fill it for 4 months. So it's percolating well, but it's starting to come up now. Chapter 3 will also consider transportation. Transportation logistics for both construction and for operation.
Can't see your screen.
is that right? Oh,
I can currently see it. Chris, is that anybody else? You can't see his screen?
I'm seeing yeah, I'm seeing a PowerPoint slide.
Yeah.
When
Okay.
you come out downtown east is what I see.
Yeah. Transportation slide. Yep. Okay. You're good.
Okay. So a large operation might be moving multiple trucks of feed in and fish out, in this case on a daily basis. This property's bordered by I-80, and actually an exit right onto the property, and bordered on the other side by rail. So that'll be an important consideration in how these things are moving in and out of your facility. Neighbors. Someone asked about this word, and I'm not that poor of a speller. This is actually how you spell neighbors in Canada. You'll notice that we try to fit in as many silent letters as we can. So does your site have any neighbors, or does your site look like this one at West Coast Salmon? Sometimes neighbors can be a challenge. When you finally get to chapter 4, the second trimester, if you will, first you want to look at Bioplan. This is something that you should start with before you design anything. You'll need to choose design partners for your RAS technology and for civil contracting. And this varies, of course, with the size of your facility. Some people have in-house expertise to design everything on their own. And these things you'll need to figure out early on. You want to take your time. It's a very important decision. You want to do your homework and just make sure you know with whom you'd like to partner. You also want to know if you're designing your facility to meet any certification standards, like the upcoming BAP Vanguard RAS standard, which is just about to come out for public comment, or perhaps the Canadian Organic Aquaculture Standard. You'll need to know your design targets for specific efficiency KPIs. And some of them, everyone will have their own, but one would be energy use on your design. How many kilowatt hours per kilogram of feed or per kilogram of production are you targeting or are you designing for? For your water use, I'd like to use liters of water per kilogram of feed. For tank use, what is your production per cubic meter, or what's your percent use efficiency of your tanks? Higher efficiency is better to a point, but you have to make sure that it's realistic. If you've designed for an efficiency anywhere near 100%, then that is not reality. What is your required staffing in terms of full-time equivalents per kilo of production? You also want to look at backup and redundancy on all critical components of the system. We have to keep in mind that RAS eliminates the uncontrollable environmental risks experienced in net pen production. And it replaces those risks with the risks of human error and mechanical failure. So don't ignore this just because you're short on capital. If that's the case, you should probably build a smaller farm. And there are too many farms that have failed because of this. Fish handling. This is one of the best fish farmers that I know, but handling can be tricky even for the best of them. This is one area of design that you'll have to carefully think through, especially with large tanks where you may not be able to efficiently use the normal fish handling methods. If we were considering salmon grow out, for example, this is an area where traditionally only broodstock numbers of salmon have been handled in a tank-based system. So this aspect of design requires quite a bit of focus, and it's something new as the systems get larger. Finishing. A few years ago, I wrote an article in Hatchery International about off flavors. I wasn't clever enough to come up with the catchy title though, but they got that for me. But I told some stories about off flavor and about the importance of understanding it and how essential it is to prevent it and how to prevent it. But I guess some people didn't read my article, or maybe they built a RAS and grew the fish and then thought about finishing only after the fish were nearing market size. So you need to plan for finishing during the design phase in the second trimester. Some people think that they have a special RAS technology where the fish grown in their facilities do not have off flavor. And maybe one day that will be true, but today, for salmon anyway, I think that system is just called a flow-through system. So it's still a challenge out there in industry. Biosecurity is a mindset, but it also must be incorporated into the design phase of your facility. This is a good OIE article on biosecurity, and all of the transmission pathways must be considered. So you must design to prevent transmission through all of these pathways: animals, animal wastes, water, feed, fomites, and vectors, which may actually be possible in RAS. Really, for the first time in several thousand years of aquaculture, disease-free might be possible. Capex. You should expect your capital cost to be driven by the following. You can't just start with a generic dollars per kilo for Capex. You actually have to end with that. But it'll be driven mainly by feed load, water flow, material selection, the volume of concrete, the footprint of your building, the design of your chilling system if you're doing a cold water species, the speed or duration of construction, and then the location, which will impact shipping, labor, materials. You may have noticed that the reported Capex of several well-known farms has changed over time, which has been probably budget versus actual, or before and after they designed the system, or probably before and after they designed the civil part of the system. So after you've spent some time on the design on a really big system that could take months and years on the design, then you can finally move on to the next chapters, such as staffing. So this starts with your location search. Housing, for example, if you're building in a somewhat rural area, is there sufficient housing for the people needed to build the facility? For a large facility, that could be a couple of hundred people. What expertise is available locally? What labor is available? What educational programs produce graduates who have chosen aquaculture as a career path? There is, of course, you guys have a program, and this is you when you are graduating out of your program. That's what the industry is looking for. There's a huge shortage of expertise, so they will be looking for people like you. Labor will be staggered, of course. You don't need everybody at once. You don't need this processing crew, for example, for some time, depending on the species you're growing, but for several months or a couple of years. You should plan on taking quite a bit of time to hire the people. You must also understand that this is a gradual buildup of labor and incorporate that into your costs associated with the buildup of biomass of fish, which on a new system all has to happen before any cash flow begins. Eventually the design will be done or partially done, and then you have a good idea of the Capex, and you can go out and raise the money through debt and through equity. So when I write a book, it'll detail exactly how to do that, but I will definitely need guest authors to participate in writing that chapter. The farm in Nevada is currently at this stage here. And finally, you can start on construction, or the third trimester. Construction must be well planned out with all of the different specializations during the design phase. This is an image from the Proximar farm being built in Japan to grow Atlantic salmon. You have to remind your architect that you need a farm building and not a palace or an entertainment park. The setup or model that you use for construction is important. This is where your internal expertise comes in. Do you want a general contractor or subcontractors? Is it design and build, or a traditional design, bid and build? What are the means and methods of construction related to location? You know, where's the closest concrete plant, for example? Duration, just like having a baby, you want this thing to be as quick as possible, while still doing everything safely and having the best result. Sequencing of construction is also crucial. You may not want to have one huge building where you're waiting for an occupancy permit before you can even stock your eggs. So to summarize the book, you need a strong team to know what to expect when you're expecting to build a RAS. And if I'm able to sell a dozen books, then I may consider a book sequel, which is after the RAS is born. What to expect when you're expecting to operate a RAS. Well, that will have a few highly anticipated chapters, starting with chapter 1, Hoping for a Girl. For salmon anyway, just like a dairy farmer, you might want to grow females. And a chapter on managing and upcycling your nutrients. There will be poop, and lots of it. So this concluded the presentation that I did at RasTech, and now it leads us into your area of interest, your area of study, and that's aquaponics. So we can jump into the next here at Northern Divine Aquafarms. And I see that Charlie posted a link there to the farm. This is a farm that I have worked at and helped to build and develop over many years. It started as a salmon farming company with a hatchery and net pen sites and a processing plant. In 1998, we built our first RAS at that site, and it was for producing Atlantic salmon smolts. And we found that we could produce those smolts 3 times as big and 6 months earlier than the method we were using before, and realized that this is a really fantastic way to grow fish. So we carried on and built a second RAS facility at that site, and that was to grow sturgeon at that time. So we were growing, as in this picture is a large coho salmon brood fish. And we were growing coho salmon, Atlantic salmon, Chinook salmon, as well as black cod or sablefish. And then in 1998, we added sturgeon, white sturgeon, to the land-based site. So in 2000, we built another RAS to house the sturgeon, and that was started as sort of an R&D project, and really to see if that's something that we could produce. The reason that we were interested in sturgeon is that with the coho salmon, we found some value in the roe, in the eggs. So we were harvesting those fish, about between 2,000 and 4,000 tons of coho salmon a year. And all of the eggs, or the roe, that was going in with the rest of the offal, and it was sent in for rendering to make other animal feeds. And someone came one day and said that they were interested in those eggs. Could we send a box of eggs to them? And they looked through that and thought that this is pretty good quality. We can make something with it, which was two products. One is Akura, or a salmon caviar, and the other one is Sujiko, which is a salted product where the eggs are still in the skein. Both products that were going to Japan. So we sent him a bunch of more eggs the rest of that season, and they sent back a check for $7,000, and so that was pretty good. Instead of paying to get rid of it, someone was going to pay us something for it. So then we started focusing on the roe, and we built that up to sell $500,000 worth of roe over the next within a couple of years, $500,000 of roe a year. And that's when we started to develop the all-female program, and figured if we can grow all-female coho, we can double our roe, and that's what we did. So we developed that over quite a few years, and then we got a pretty nice check at the end of each season for the roe. And just by not coincidence really, but we hadn't anticipated that we needed those coho to be all females to grow in a recirculating aquaculture system. So as that land-based industry emerged, then we soon found out that it was very difficult to grow male salmonids in that system, because they would all just mature early and turn into a liability. They turn brown, and you have to get them out and dispose of them. So that was a bonus. So when we realized the value of that coho roe, that's when we decided, well, maybe we should try and grow some sturgeon roe as well, and embarked on that. That was a much longer journey, and took about 11 years for the first fish to mature and produce caviar. But that is going strong still now, and we've been harvesting caviar since 2011 at that facility. We'll just jump to the next site that I've worked with, Habitat Life. It's a very small aquaponics facility. I should mention that in 2010, we did start aquaponics at the Northern Divine site as well, growing a variety of crops. And it was a coupled facility with the sturgeon. And then at Habitat Life here, we built a decoupled facility. So here on the left, we have a small coho, and this site gets juveniles from Northern Divine to stock every 3 months. Then we have the coho are on their own research system. Then in the middle, we've got our mineralization system where we're taking the solid waste from out of the fish, mineralizing that, and then it'll go into the plant system. And here, in this case, we're doing cannabis. I'll see if I can get this video to run. Tell me if, can you see that video?
Not yet, Justin.
Okay, let me just,
It'll be in your slide.
yeah, let me just
Unshare.
share a different window here.
Yeah.
Okay,
That's coming up.
tell me if that's good.
That's good right now.
Right now with all this rain again, it's never been hotter. But I think, you know, a testament to the area, you know, I would absolutely want to think of areas that is growing.
It's not running smoothly.
My name's Jamie.
Oh, it's not?
And I've spent my life searching.
Okay, here, what I'll do is I'll just send you a link to it.
Yeah.
And you can watch it at your leisure there. But what it is just a video. I just put it in the chat.
Great.
For Habitat, just someone who came and did a tour of the facility. So let me just put this other screen back on.
Yeah, one of my students had done a project, Amanda, and she's here. She did a project about Habitat, just a current event telling us about what's new and out there. So I think we watched a little bit of that video during our presentation.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, great, yeah. So I can just give an update on that. We built the fish facility, and it was worked really well right from day one. The plant part of the facility, the mineralization and plant part, took a little while longer to come around. And we had to make lots of changes. The plant room, we realized it was too difficult to control the microclimates in the air. So we did a renovation a year or so ago, took out that plant room and built 6 small plant rooms. And then the mineralization system did a fair amount of work just to refine that filtration process. And now the system is running really well, and finally cash flow positive after a few years of R&D and getting it up and running. So that is my last slide there. Maybe we can jump into some discussion and questions.
Yeah, let me just wrap it up and say thank you, Justin, for your time. Obviously, you're very busy and you got a lot going on. I think maybe our students may have some interest in that Nevada project, and we're not far away. So when you are looking for trained people, make sure to reach out to me. So everybody, I'm going to stop recording now. Thank you all for coming as well. Let me stop recording and then we'll do some Q&A.